we're dead center butthole of Generation X.
What we were talking about was that there's nobody today knows what the difference between racist and prejudiced is. So no matter what you do and no matter what you say, it turns out to be racist, when it may not even be racist or it may not even be prejudiced. But most of the time, nobody can figure out the difference between the two.
We don't use the word prejudice anymore because prejudice is towards personality or tendencies, and I don't like that group, not necessarily that person's skin color, which skin color is stupid.
Well, that's what I say it all the time. It drives me crazy. People, if I hate a certain group of people, depending on the reason for the hate or the certain group of people, a certain group of people could be black people, could be Mexican or Asian. But if I say I hate Asians, well, that's racist. That's racist. But if I say I think that Asian's about to
karate kick me. Now that's us Asians no karate.
That's prejudice.
It's weird that conversation brought us into the ideas that we're Generation X, and X is an intersection. And it started with me going, our Generation Xers we're just coming up on the age where we get to gain the power. Think about who's wielded the power for the last, as far as, in DC, in technology, in finance, who's running the show. And it's getting ready to be Generation Xers. It's been the boomers up until now. We were latchkey kids, right? I mean, were you to an extent?
Absolutely. Single parent home, parents divorced early. And, when you got off school, you were on your own until your parents got off work, or one parent got off work.
Well, we come from the idea that, there's no milk in the house. Mom's boyfriend is passed out in the bedroom. I got to make sure he doesn't beat me up. And my youngest sister, I think she's probably my sister or my sister's daughter, needs a grilled cheese sandwich. So what do we do? In the middle of an X, it's not just two lines. There's a crossroads there. There's a center point. And I feel like if you're at my age or Keith's age, 49 or 50, we're sitting in a sweet spot of the X. And if you just turn an X a certain way, it turns into, as Keith likes to say, a swastika without all the extra lines. That's what his tattoo on his forehead says.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it's an intersection. And I feel like my thought is we're kind of there because we are in the middle of, what were we talking about? It was like, what would you do to go back and put yourself in the time, like the horse and buggy, lantern, kerosene lamp era, and take what you wanted and leave what you didn't need and apply it to today? How valuable would that be?
Right. The value, what we're talking about, the value comes from knowing what's fluff and knowing what matters. So
like what, for instance?
So if you go back and just say 50 years from now, you look back and go, man, that COVID was a big deal. It was a big deal. So we're all hiding under our desks, just like the nuclear scares. We're hiding under our desks, and the COVID was a big deal. And we might look back in 50 years and go, man, COVID really wasn't that big of a deal. It turns out it was something different. I don't know.
How did acid rain affect your family?
Right, acid rain and global warming and you name it. Everything that we were scared of in the 50s, that the Russians were going to drop the bomb and the Cold War and all that. If you knew what you knew now back then, and you can just dismiss that and get to what's important, everything would you could just move on and get such an advantage over everything else. If you just knew what you knew back then, it would just remove the clutter from your life.
Well, the clutter, I think, is inflicted. It's not by accident. What you're talking about, like the nukes being dropped and all these drills and just making us live in fear and all this kind of stuff, that's just distractions. That's just a sleight of hand to make sure that we're not doing what we're supposed to be doing, which is keeping our house in order. And I don't want to go full Jordan Peterson and stuff, and I'll get to that in a sec. But the idea of the Generation X has a very specific place in time because we are kind of like the before time when we know what call waiting means. We know what a dial tone sounds like. We know what it means like to get a busy signal, and I'm waiting for. Sorry, go ahead.
We know what it's like to go to a concert and having to meet your friends at a specific spot at a specific time without the luxury of a cell phone to say, hey, it was
right,
meet me here at 10:15 at this part, and then we'll get together and go. That we didn't have those luxuries back then. We knew how to navigate without the luxuries that we have now.
We're before tech and after tech. The silicon, like pre-sil, post. Maybe we'll start a term.
Maybe
I'm pre-post. That's my pronoun.
The people that can appreciate the time before technology and also appreciate the time after technology.
Well, the thing about with phones is and this is what they're trying to bring us back. They're trying to bring us back to the before time, pre-sil. I'm just going to call it that. I'm making a new term.
Pre-sil.
This will be edited down on my phone. I'm about as savvy as any average person. I'm not saying there's not, someone that's going to run that's not going to run circles around me, but I can do both. I know what it was like, and I know what I can do now, and I can speak from both sides of the coin. And then you have your baby boomers who are like, whatever, email, fine, I have to do it, but that's about it. They're not excited about the new stuff. Then you have millennials that think that we're ancient. It's like, you were in my house when I got my first email address. You were born. You were born then, and everything's moving so fast that we have this. And I'll tie it into to something else here in 1 second. But we have this knowledge of how we know the before and after of the boom, the Silicon Valley. Once we realized what the microchip and all that kind of stuff was able to bring to the table to make things very small and do big things, and that's where the X factor, if I shall use that, kind of comes into play.
The X factor of Generation X.
Well put, Keith. I'm glad you thought of that yourself. Piece of fucking shit. Thanks for stealing my thunder. But but if you think about it, I'm 49, Keith is 50, and we're getting ready to be in that age group where the keys are being handed off. The Pelosi's and the not that we're in politics, but we both run small businesses. Or at least I do. Keith talks about it over and over again. But one day. Yeah.
One day.
But there's a big group of self-sufficient people that grew up with a key in their hand and let's just figure it out type mentality that's quickly switched to we'll take care of you mentality. We're getting ready to take the reins. And we got a lot of work to do, I think, to go, let's show that it's the right way to go. And I guess recognizing it is the way to roll.
Right.
Because my dick is black. Can we edit this?
I think we can.
What if I didn't edit it out at all?
Just put it out there for the world.
My point is, like, I was too stupid at 25 years old to even give a shit about what the fuck was going on with housing market stuff. So you have to be like 2 generations ahead.
Well, like you said, when I was 25 years old, it would be hard-pressed for me to tell you the difference between a conservative and a liberal or a Republican or a Democrat. I wasn't really savvy on that. But today, a 17-year-old can distinctly tell you which side of the fence they lay on.
There's a fulcrum between people who think, I need to figure this out myself because nobody else is going to do it. It's all for ourselves. And in the long run, everyone's going to be better off if we all do it that way. And then there's the groupthink, which is a communist way of thinking, to say if we all just do what this small group of people tells us to do, we're all going to be better. And I think that's the worst idea in the fucking history of humanity.
It's a lazy way of thinking. Let somebody else do the heavy lifting for me.
Have you ever found yourself going, why do people get drawn to that? Like, to me, it's repellent. For me to like see a crown on a person's head and to say, you shall do this because I have a direct link to God, when I know that I have a direct link to God too. Who the fuck are you? I can shoot you dead. If I can't do that, then you're no deity. And who are you to tell me anything? You can be assassinated. You ain't no fucking deity. We're getting ready to have our group come into power. And like you said, the DeSantos, Ted Cruz, Rand Paul, all these guys that are kind of sitting in that spectrum. We were latchkey kids.
To me, when we were describing this time, we kind of making it sound like we were abandoned children or we were abused, but in no way, shape, or form.
I wouldn't trade it for anything.
I was never abandoned. I was never abused. I was well taken care of, but I was allowed to figure things out for myself. Sometimes out of necessity and sometimes out of a learning experience. I didn't have to have a parent holding my hand every 5 seconds. And I still today it drives me crazy to see a 28-year-old man or a 28-year-old woman, a grown person, living in a house with their parents, and still I feel like they're less mature than I was when I was 13 years old and having to make dinner for myself or make sure that I got up and got my clothes washed and got ready for school.
Most people didn't figure out how to make a better battery when they had a lot of time to themselves. They didn't come home as a latchkey kid going, yeah, Dad's out of town for 2 days. I'm going to do a science experiment. No, you're like, I'm going to see where my friends are. We're going to get fucked up.
Yeah.
And the reality is we didn't know it at the time, but we were learning to be self-sufficient. And it is the way to go. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I would never go back in time and wish that someone fucking spoon-fed me one fucking thing that I have right now.
No. It's a badge of honor. I did it. It's your dad telling you I had to walk uphill to school both ways. All that crap. We had to do things that people today don't have to do. But I'm glad that I had to do it because I think it taught me a certain value.
We happen to be in this, I'm calling it a sweet spot of we know the before time and we're still savvy with the current time and we're still able-bodied. I mean, we're not, just kind of creeping around. I can outwork most people physically. And
we're not in a wheelchair.
Yeah, we're still sharp and able to learn. And, as quickly as my children are, is what they're bombarded with. No, but I can outwork my own children. I guarantee you they would drop dead. Now, 10 years from now, probably still 20 years from now, hell no. So there's a shelf life on it.
Sure.
And I mean, we both come from the restaurant industry where you don't get to take that moment to go, but what about my feelings, and I think it's an interesting take.
Well, getting back to, when you're talking about millennials, the thing that I say about millennials, they don't get enough credit. And what happened was that millennial became a generic term for a young person.
I mean, How belittling is it?
Not what it is. Millennials are 35 years old now. They're out in the world and they're productive members of society, and they're really it's a strong generation. It's very tempting to believe what aligns with your agenda, what your beliefs are. My belief, I'm typically conservative or however you want to label it, but I'm typically conservative and lean Republican. So it's very easy when a story that comes out that supports the right side of the aisle to just believe that and move on. But it's not always true. And everything that supports the left side of the aisle is propaganda and bullshit. But that's not always true.
What you just said right there, though, is a lost art, or is getting ready to be critical thinking. To sit there and go, could I be wrong?
Yeah. This aligns with what I believe.
So
is it true? But you still have to sift through it, just like it didn't align with what you believe, just to prove that it's true or not true.
I do think Generation X is getting ready to make a huge move in just the amount of people that are getting ready to come into power. That's why they're trying to to let immigrants come in because they're not in the hierarchy of Generation X, boomers, and all that stuff. It's a totally different culture, and they can disrupt this wave of Generation X that's getting ready to hit hard. We're just now, most people start, or most generations start making their move and affecting how the world works at about 50 or 55 years old. And then they roll into their 70s. That's a huge amount of time. And then there's always there's the front end, which we're seeing in Cruz and DeSantis and all that stuff. And there's a tail end that people catch fire.
We don't even know yet.
Yeah, and if it's a big enough wave, like, some things we've seen, then it can go longer than just our little sweet spot. You catch people on that wave and they ride along with it, and then it'll stop, and then it's going to go back the other way. It's just the way it works, unless you don't know how to read history books, which are fabricated anyway.
The last thing I'll say is we said it before and you alluded to it, but my main thing is listen. There's a difference between talking to somebody and then waiting for your turn to speak again and listening to that person. So,
can I just interject? Let me see. I can't hear you. I can't hear you. Sorry. I guess goodbye, everybody.
Make sure you're listening to the other person instead of just
We catch people on that wave and they ride along with it, and then it'll stop.
Amen, brother.
It's going to go back the other way.
Did you get anything else you want to say, man?
No, man, I appreciate the conversation. You said very much really dissected it. It's funny.
That's Michelle and Rick.
You really don't know where this conversation is going to go. It starts here and it ends up in a totally different spot. I really enjoy that.